Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apex Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apex Lab mineral concentrates. Apex Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apex Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apexlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought I was going to say the website. Thanks. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good. Liam, what have we been doing? What has been happening? We have been floundering. Just me sitting here talking coffee like an idiot, a fool. And we've been saying we need to find a new co-host, right? I was trying to paint a picture for you. I'm like, I want someone that's like got years of experience. Not too hard on the eyes. Pretty beautiful, would be great.
Would be.
Q grading experience, a judge for the World Barista Championships, years of experience building up roasteries from the ground to make them epic. Well, guess what, Liam?
What?
We just got a new co-host, and I'm so proud to introduce you, the new co-host of It's Just Coffee, Ben Bicknell. How does it feel just sitting on the other side where people talk about you like that?
It's great. It's great. Really enjoying it.
Man, we kind of set out on this journey. We've been thinking about who we wanted to join us. And I just wanted to make sure that it was someone that kind of matched our visions, our goals, was just inspired by coffee and loving it so much. And after having a few chats with Ben and setting that up, instantly we just connected. This dude is so knowledgeable, has so much insight. As much as you guys are going to learn stuff, I'm going to learn so much about this. I think there's a nice balance here of kind of the worlds of coffee, of what we're doing. It's funny, our paths would have crossed like multiple times in the industry, but never in a really meaningful way. You worked at Five Senses, who was like one of the first cafes I worked at, used Five Senses at 3 Bags Full with Jamie Thompson. And so, after 5 minutes of sitting down, I think we instantly were just chatting and
lots of shared history,
lots of love for coffee. Every time Ben has walked in, he's bought about 4 different bags of these like crazy competition lot things that we're trying out. So I'm so excited to have you as part of the team. The first thing that we need to do as the new co-host, warm the vocal cords. Welcome back, guys. I'm Rowan Cook.
And I'm Ben Bicknell.
And it's just coffee. Wow, it's like he's been. Or is it? Or is it? I mean, that was one of the first things that we spoke about. You were like, the It's Just Coffee thing is a little like tongue in cheek, right? I'm like, yes, completely. It's based on the fact that it is way more than just coffee, but also just a little reminder that we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, not too serious.
In all of it. We had Arthur Carolet were on one of the episodes, and that was one where I had to preface at the start. After saying it's just coffee, I want to be like, just so you know, that's tongue in cheek in the way of obviously it's way more than that. And for you, it's been everything. So yes, it definitely is more than just coffee. But as we start out, you're going to be the co-host, but not today. We're putting you in the guest seat today because I want the listeners of the show to learn a little bit about you and have that understanding of what you're going to bring to the pod, your background, and your general love of coffee. So just to start it off, can you give us just like the little elevator pitch of Ben Bicknell?
Sure, the 2 seconds. Well, I'm Ben, and I am the director of the Sensory Agenda. We're a small support agency. We're focused on coffee quality and brand strategy, coaching and project work, which basically just means I've created a platform to do all the fun projects with good people that I enjoy all around the world. And I'm also the co-founder of OpenFloor, which is a business where supporting and empowering essentially coffee producing folks and businesses to connect most effectively and capture value with the buyer market or with the consuming world. So I think exporters, coffee producers, producing country organizations, nonprofits, that kind of thing, and just help them to kind of really have their voice loud and strong and clear when they're kind of connecting with this consuming world.
Right, because when we started talking, I knew about the other business, but this was the new one.
Yeah.
You kind of
did a little soft launch recently, which is
launched
fun.
into. So what kind of problem are you solving here in the world? Like breaking it down, like what's the real aim of this new business?
Yeah, well, look, I guess myself and my co-founder, Sandra Lufborough, who's based in the US, we both have a lot of shared passion for this space, but we also are really experienced in kind of buying coffee and representing it into this kind of consuming space, right? So into cafes, working with baristas, marketing and talking about bags of coffee and how is it sent out into the world. And what we just realized is that a lot of the coffee producing exporters and companies are really experts in that field, right? In sourcing and logistics and quality control and working with farmers and getting a whole shipment of coffee from a country on the other side of the world out to the consuming world. But they might not have as much experience or awareness about what it is that's making a roaster tick and what they need in order to make buying coffee successful. And so we're just trying to bridge that gap and give them all of the context so they can come to a roaster and say, here's everything that you might need, and here's it in a way that is going to really showcase the coffee in the best way. So really just supporting them to make that connection.
That's awesome. Right off the cuff, what coffee are you drinking? What's your go-to order?
Oh, well, if I'm out at a cafe, I'm ordering a little flat white.
A little flatty?
Yeah, a little flatty. I'm a big fan. I don't actually have an espresso machine set up on my bench at home. And so I drink a lot of filter coffee at home.
I've got about 15 here if you want to grab one.
I'll be leaving today with one of those. That's part of this deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. It's a signing bonus.
Sweet. I don't know how my wife will feel about that. That's a limited bench space there. But,
I'll get into my ad spiel of it. What I'd be looking at here is one of the more slimline models that we could look at.
Nice. I'll just put your voice memo that.
Yeah.
So out at cafes, I really enjoy just treating myself to a really beautiful little milk coffee. It's really luxurious, feels great.
That's kind of nice though, separating the two, right? Like the flat white when you go out, filter coffee when you're at home.
And I spend so much time cupping coffees. So it's obviously almost like a filter. It's black. It's kind of a little bit more dilute. So it's really nice to have a different expression of it.
Mm-hmm. Cupping coffee.
Cupping coffee. This is the technical tasting protocol. It's all very measured and organized in a particular way. And when I'm doing it as well, it's kind of a different headspace. It's in an assessment and quality check space rather than just sitting down enjoying a cup.
But also it's also very precise in doing that, but it's also the most caveman way of making coffee. It's really the most basic thing ever. It's smash bean in cup, add water, let's sit.
That's it. Take all the fanciness out of it.
Yeah, and that's the best way to kind of judge what you're getting in those characteristics from it, which,
for sure.
I mean, so many future episodes where we can dive deeper into all these aspects of it that will be amazing. But making, just for the people at home, so at home you're making filter. What's your brew method of choice? How are you making this coffee?
I'm a big fan of the Kalita.
The flat bottom.
The flat bottom.
Not the V60.
Yeah. No, look, this really came from my time in a cafe and helping cafes set up and do something really consistent. And so just finding that flat bottom really helps to reduce the variables, and certainly at home, that's kind of a nice way of getting the coffee out.
So for those that are using, what would you say the benefits are of the V60 versus the Kalita? Like when would someone want to use the V60 versus the Kalita?
I think from my experience, you can get a lot more nuanced flavors out of using the V60. Like if you really know a recipe and you're very controlling of how you are doing it, because it happens so much quicker, right? Like it's that direct flow through of the water. That can be really great to utilize like a V60, and you're really honing in on particular flavors. But it's not very forgiving. If you kind of get your dosing and your water pouring a little bit incorrect, or you get distracted, then it's not going to turn out quite as nice enough. Just find the Kalita just a little bit more forgiving.
Right. So for someone that's maybe using like the same brew recipe, like no matter what coffee they have and just doing it, Kalita is kind of like an easier, more consistent method.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Jumping into your kind of, where did the coffee love kind of start for you? And like, what was your entry into the coffee world? Like for me, I had like, my dad always would make me make coffee in the morning, and the grinding and the smell and like that moment that would kind of come to me. I was like, as a kid, it's like, oh, this is amazing. And then I'd sneak a sip of the coffee and be like, oh, this is awful. Then I got into the cafe world and just loved like the experience of always making it better, or finding out when people wanted something specific and giving that to them. And it was such this like moment of giving joy that I just loved. What was it for you that kind of like brought you in? I
really feel you on that connection in the cafe world for sure. I mean, I had coffee growing up around me. My parents drank it. I definitely have these beautiful little nostalgic memories of visiting and staying it with my grandparents. My grandfather would be waking up early. He'd be whistling, using a little whirly blade grinder to smash up those beans and make a plunger. And, you know, I'd smell that going through the house, but I was never really interested or engaged with it at that point. But when I started university, needed a way to pay my way through. And so pretty classic kind of genesis story there of getting into it, that I dove into the coffee world because cafes looked like a lot of fun. You know, there was a lot of energy, there was music going.
Young people, you're meting friends.
People were pretty happy, you know, pretty good hours to kind of be working at. And so, yeah, I got started. I just kind of thought I'll apply for one of these and see how it goes. And I actually got my first coffee job at a Gloria Jean's store in Perth.
Gloria Jean's.
Gloria Jean's
Sonam
and
Sherpa.
Westside. Yep.
Sonam Sherpa, similar origin stories. I think he started at Gloria Jean's.
We got some shared history there.
Wait, so I have to ask, Gloria Jean's, obviously you're going to be making some pretty, you know, non-traditional drinks there. What's your dirty little secret? Like what, if you could have a Gloria Jean's coffee right now, it's just like a little naughty little blended something.
Look, I really enjoyed the mocha orange frappuccino.
Oh, the Zoolander, the orange mocha frappuccino.
Yeah, pretty much like that. That's how I was rolling.
We should recreate that scene as our introduction to you on the podcast.
But we could go deep dive on it. Deep dive, side by side.
A petrol water fight at the gas station. Ben Bicknell's here.
We'll just bring it out. It was great. It hit the spot. It's a delicious combo.
Regardless of like how much sugar's in it or whatever, chocolate orange espresso, that's a match made in heaven. You could make a fancy little World Barista Champion, you know, signature drink out of those flavors and make something pretty damn tasty.
And I mean, this is the whole thing about coffee is you know, everyone approaches it and starts with it at different points. And those kinds of drinks are a delicious kickoff point, you know, great way to get into it.
And jumping back, I agree with you. Like one of the first cafe I worked at, I agree with you about like how much fun it was or like meeting people. The first cafe I worked at had like a staff of like 100 people on the books. So you as a young person coming out of school, you were meeting like so many new people, so many new friends, and you were like, they all seemed quite happy. And I'll counterpoint, happiness sometimes came from a hatred of upper management. And how much as a young kid did you just get off everyone going out for a drink after the shift and just talking absolute crap about the bosses and just being like, I can't believe he came down and said this and like he doesn't get it.
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Absolutely. You've got so many ties to Gloria Jean's.
So many problems.
So many ties to Gloria Jean's. You don't want to burn any bridges.
But you definitely do that with customers of like finding the humor in all of these different personalities that come through the door for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, our first connection kind of through coffee is what I was saying before with like five senses. you were there for a long time. That was kind of probably to me where it feels like your reputation in the industry and that kind of came from. Tell us a little bit about like how you got started there. And I feel like you wore a lot of hats there. Like you almost did like 8 careers in one job.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
When I came out of that, I was writing my CV, my resume, and I was like, okay, it's one employer, but here's all the different jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, starting off from Gloria Jeans and kicking into that, like I said, I've actually been in the coffee industry now for 25 years. And so it's been quite a journey. But I got more and more down that rabbit hole of coffee, right? Experimenting, exploring with different techniques. Back in, this is early 2000s, this the cresting wave of specialty globally was just starting to happen. And there were all of these super geeky kind of online chat forums getting deep into, what age do you use your roasted coffee? And you can clean your espresso machine and it makes it taste different. It's amazing. So these kind of revolutionary new ideas, and I would go back into work and put them into action. And so I'd be getting deeper and deeper into this. I eventually hunted down the few specialty cafes that were operating around Perth at the time, hung around so much at one of them that they convinced to give me a job, and got on behind the bar there. And while I was working there, their coffee supplier was 5 Senses Coffee, and I decided I wanted to enter a coffee competition. Now, there was no kind of easy barista championships at this point. It was over in Sydney on the East Coast, and it was a private competition from one company. But I approached 5 Senses and said, I want to do this. Can you help me? Can you do some training? And no one had ever seen any competition before. So we were literally running off the score sheets. And for some reason, we didn't even find the rules. We were just like looking at the score sheet. And so we kind of knew this is what's being judged, but not the structure of it. Anyway, so I shouldered my grinder and all of my kit and boxes of stuff and flew to Sydney, took a bus with my competition kit out to this thing, and sat down, and in front of me, the competitor before me was none other than David Macon, a long-time competitor, very polished, very experienced coffee pro in the global coffee scene. And he got up and presented this amazing performance. And I had prepared as if the judges were going to ask me questions.
Oh, dear.
And this was back in the stone-faced killer judging day where they were not allowed to show any expression, right? And so then I just absolutely blew it. I got up on stage and
Did you just ask yourself the questions?
I talked non-stop for, 16 and a half minutes. So this podcast is obviously, it's the full circle. I'm well practiced. But I was talking about how I was steaming the milk and temperature. Anyway, got right into that, came back to, crashed and burned for sure, but came back with that experience, and 5 Senses said, look, we want to do some education for people for the cafes we're supplying. Would you be interested in coming on board and kind of helping run that? And I'd finished my university career.
We loved your competition routine.
Yeah,
Can you come and teach coffee?
It was on the other side of the country. It was a little bit out of sight, out of mind.
We can't let anyone else go through this.
I feel like there's such like the World Barista Champs and that championships are so well known, and like the level is so high and so well established that I feel like that entry level part is getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
I love that back in the day, some idiot from Perth can be like, you know what? I'm going to enter a competition and just go for it and just be like absolutely crash and burn. But probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you learn so much from that competition and just seeing the others and seing how it all went out?
I learned so much just practicing for it in the wrong way. I still learned a lot. I learned so much watching the other competitors, getting feedback. But then also some of the people I met then were coffee community that I've still got now, that I've known for over 2 decades and have gone on to do amazing things themselves. So yeah, that was great. But I came back to Perth and we started up this training school. It was kind of the West Australian Barista Academy, and started everything from scratch, right? It was rote curriculum, taught the classes, painted the walls in this little kind of place in Northbridge in Perth. And it was a great experience. And it was really bringing people together and making it a bit of a hub to share information, to kind of share knowledge. And so I kept working with Five Senses kind of through that project, and then started working a little bit more out in the field. So I was doing customer support. I went on and did some sales. I did green coffee sourcing for a while, some brand management, and then kind of ended up with this loose title of strategic projects, and was kind of one of the people who was helping run kind of the company.
Okay, you had me at all of those there. I understand what customer support is, sales, green coffee, purchasing. What is strategic projects?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a catch-all, right? So it was kind of looking at what are the things that are outside of like the normal operations but are going to help shift things forward. So different creative projects, or they might have been events or activations.
Do you have some examples of some crazy stuff you did in this field?
I have to say it was so great. Got a lot of leeway to explore different things and engage. We did this one really cool project here in Melbourne alongside the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival that years ago, they choose a different theme each year. And one year they said, we're going to do coffee. And we were the key partner for that. And so myself and the team from Melbourne Food and Wine created a coffee farm in the middle of Melbourne City. So over kind of on the banks of the river, we got in all these shipping containers to create these fake mountains. We bought something like 10,000 coffee trees off an abandoned coffee farm up in far north Queensland, got them brought down and literally brought a coffee mountain in. And
how much money did you guys have?
It was amazing.
Oh my
it was
God.
Amazing. Well,
you bought a coffee farm down from Queensland.
Yeah. It was like back in the golden days, right? No one knew what they were doing.
God, amazing. They're like, yeah, sure, sounds great.
But it was incredible. And we had like Guatemala was part of the partner. And so it was all this education around coffee farming in Guatemala as a focus. We had like these shipping containers that were brew bars. It was just really cool, creative, bringing a lot of knowledge.
Okay, when we come to the PR stunts of It's Just Coffee, I don't know if we have the budget to build a full coffee farm. But we'll have to think creatively to have as much impact with a lot less budget.
Some AR, augmented reality.
Yeah, we don't have budget for that, mate. Damn it. We'll do some like cut out like shadow puppets or something on a wall.
The bar has just been raised. It's been risen,
So going back, one thing just always reminds me of Five Senses, and this is maybe like a little call out, A, to baristas who are wanting to do something a little differently, or B, you could tell me that this was really annoying and as the coffee roasting company, you hated this. But Jamie, who we've had on the show, friend of the show, good friend, he was the head of coffee at 3 Bags when we were with Five Senses. And instead of like him having your blends that you'd created and doing that kind of stuff, he'd look at all the singles that you had on and he'd go, send me a bucket of this, and he'd get like 5 just buckets of coffee. And then he'd just come in and he'd start blending them himself, and he'd create his own blends just from what you were putting up on the table. So even when it was like working with a coffee roastery, he was then getting his own fingerprint on it or his own way of kind of representing it. A, was that annoying? Or B, is that something cool? Like if you have someone that calls up.
I think that's cool. I think that's great. If you can manage that and manage your freshness and all of the logistics of that, I think it's a really cool way of kind of taking a bit more control, but also like being respectful of that experimentation is kind of on your kind of time versus kind of saying to your roaster, actually this week, can you just tweak the percentage like 5%? And
he was doing it all himself, sitting on the floor with cups and buckets and scales.
I love that. And, like, again, in that time, 3 Bags and some of these other cafes around Australia were really pioneering a lot of how they were talking about coffee and presenting things like single origins as well.
So beyond that, your coffee knowledge is just so vast. Were you the first Q grader or qualified, a Coffee Quality Institute certified Q grader at that time in Australia?
Yeah.
So the first in Oz.
I believe I was. I had to travel to Vermont in northern US to attend a course because there was no courses here in Australia, and did the Q grader course there.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Q grader.
It's someone at like pool holes who walks around and gets the cues.
Oh, yeah.
And
No worries.
grades. Do they have the tip on? How is the blue chalk getting applied well?
You've been preparing that one, haven't you?
Yeah.
You didn't let me
So
know.
I'm a Q grader as well then.
Yeah. No, go on, please.
Yeah, what is a Q grader?
It stands for quality grader, or a quality kind of coffee quality evaluation.
How'd they come up with that name?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like just flows off the tongue. But it's a certification that's has been run up until relatively recently by the Coffee Quality Institute, CQI, who are like a global non-profit kind of body, and they essentially the Q grader system certifies people who cup and assess the quality of the raw coffee product, as well as being able to assess the actual coffee, right? So like there's a certification that's for the people with the skills and the abilities, and then there's kind of their application of that skill to assessing a quality of coffee.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's often referred to as like the sommelier kind of accreditation for coffee.
Okay.
Right. So it's looking at, it's looking at the ability of the person to be able to taste differences in the coffees, to be able to evaluate what quality it is in the cup, and then to be able to communicate that effectively as well. That's obviously a critical part.
So
That's
you
so
get
cool.
qualified. What are you then doing with that once you have it?
Yeah, a lot of it is around kind of the quality of the coffee that as a roaster, for example, you're bringing in or maybe selecting to kind of roast up. So as I said, it's a communication tool as well. It's like, what is the quality of coffee that I'm getting in? And then feedback to the people who are offering that to you of like, oh, this didn't quite hit, or this was great because of these profiles. So you can find the right match for what you're looking for really well.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of that was like quality control, quality assurance, but then also that sourcing kind of process. But it does build a lot of skills as well outside of that. So, I had I had a bunch of baristas and cafe owners who have come through the courses who are really just wanting to increase their vocabulary and their way of thinking about how you taste and describe coffee.
Right. So they're not necessarily going out and ranking the lots of like where it is.
Exactly.
Are you doing that?
Yes.
So you're going out to what's the process of go to the farm, send it out to you? What's the process?
Well, it can look like a lot of different ways depending on where you are in the chain and what your role is. But for a lot of people, it'll be you get sent a sample from an exporter, for example, or maybe your importer. If you're a roaster, you'll get sent the sample and you'll do an assessment on that. Look at the raw green sample of it. So look at the physical beans before it's roasted and kind of look at any defects that might be there. And then you roast.
What kind
it
of
up.
defects are we looking at? Quakers.
No, in fact,
roast.
no. That's in roasted.
Roasted coffee.
Yes, exactly.
So
you don't
green
see quakers,
coffee,
but in the green coffee, you might see really significant ones, like if they're full black seeds.
Yeah.
Or you might see smaller issues like insect damage, like little holes drilled in, and so you can kind of classify them. Some are more impactful, some are less.
Sometimes there's nails or bullet shells.
Exactly. Yeah. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that can get scooped up. Popcorn is very common.
Yeah.
Yep. Little bits of popcorn.
Why is there popcorn?
It's because it's often all dried on a similar kind of patio or kind of beds, and then it's all scooped up together. So it's just kind of part of the mixed package of coffee.
And wait, popcorn, so it pops.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get it in the roaster, it's not sorted out. You get these little like...
So after you've roasted, you get a piece of popcorn.
Yeah. You actually get popcorn.
I mean, make that a sales pitch. I want to get some popcorn in my
who knows? Maybe it's the next signature beverage, co-roasted popcorn and coffee.
I wonder if anyone out there has gotten a piece of popcorn, like buying like Lavazza in a supermarket. They're like, what the hell is this popcorn doing
It's like a little Easter egg. It's like, who finds the one golden...
Yeah, it's like the golden popcorn. It's like, you
popcorn.
find the killer, you get a lifetime supply of coffee.
I mean, I'm a little bit obsessed with I think it's gen matcha, where the matcha's mixed in with like the roasted rice.
Oh, yep.
The coffee equivalent could be coffee and popcorn. Get them toasty notes, then buttery goodness.
Yeah, it can happen, but you don't get it that often. But yeah, and then you basically cup the coffee and kind of assess that through scoring all the different categories of of kind of like the acidity or the body or the flavor.
And is this the rating of the coffee that it gets for like whether it's specialty kind of thing or not? Is that rating?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that 80, what is it, 80 plus rating for specialty?
Yeah. So the Q grading is basically applying the industry standards, right? And the standards there are that specialty coffee is defined as anything that cups from an 80 point up in a 100-point scale. And I guess the whole basis of this is coming back to like a Q grader says that if a Q grader scores it, there's some validity and calibration that their score is actually relative to what, to the coffee. It's not just a made up number or just a number that they've kind of calibrated to themselves.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. There's been a big change in the industry at the moment with Q grading. It's the licensing has been given to the SCA. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
So can you briefly explain to people what's happened and the effects that might have, good and bad, on the industry kind of thing? Or potentially, not potential good or bad impact?
It's kind of, in some ways is a small change and in other ways is fairly significant. Essentially, as you said, CQI or the Coffee Quality Institute has founded and administered the Q Grader program for the last 20 years. And they've just recently announced, as of April 2025, they've announced that later in 2025, control of the Q Grader program will be handed to the Specialty Coffee Association, the SCA. So they're all acronyms out there, but they're slightly different organizations. The SCA is an industry trade association, and essentially they're going to be running the Q program, and CQI will no longer be doing that.
Okay.
And the main change, it's a little bit of a different curriculum. It's being written now, so we kind of don't really know exactly what it's going to be. But the major change is that the SCA is going to be integrating their coffee value assessment, or CVA, which is their updated approach to grading and valuing coffee. So it's a change from the old cupping form, which many people were familiar with, and is a little bit different. And the reason it's so significantly different mainly is because the quality assessment that with the Q Grade program under CQI was kind of a calibrated or at least aligned agreement about the quality of the coffee and therefore a score, right? Saying this is an 84
So it's
coffee.
quite objective.
It's fairly objective. Like nothing's completely
nothing's
objective,
100%.
right? We're not robots.
Yeah.
But there was a kind of a collective alignment around here is the shape of quality and what we would score a 75 point or an 85 point or a 90 point coffee, right? And the coffee value assessment is much more of a subjective value assessment of the coffee sample. And so you might score a coffee 75 and I score the same coffee an 80, and we're both going to be correct because we value that coffee differently.
Right.
So there's quite a big change, quite a philosophical kind of change there. And yeah, there's some challenges, I think, in people navigating how to use that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll dive into that more as we move on. Also, one of the few Q Arabica instructors. Is that right?
Yeah.
How long is this bloody resume? Do we have all day? This pod's meant to be like an hour.
Extend this out.
Jesus. All right. So what is that? You're teaching and what's that experience been like?
Yeah. So I got the Q Grader license and enjoyed that experience so much. Thought it was such a great learning opportunity that I was like, we need to bring this to Australia. So I initially started just flying all these instructors down from the US and Guatemala and different areas, and they were teaching the Q, and I'd just hang out for the whole week and just like listen in and help. And it was great. But eventually I said, I love this so much. I want to start doing this and make it a bit more accessible. And so I've started teaching the Q Grader course, which is a long process, but it's great. I've found it so enjoyable to be able to kind of bring that knowledge and experience. Everyone kind of comes out. It's a very neutral teaching environment. No one's buying or selling coffee. We're just there to talk about how do we discuss and communicate and capture quality. So yeah, very cool.
It's very cool. And the next one on your list that I'm very excited about is since 2007, you've been an Australian Barista Championship judge.
Yep.
And then since 2010, World Barista Championship judge, sensory, right?
Yep.
Just blown away. I don't even have the questions. There's just so much to do here. But like basically since 2010, it's like you've had, according to the championships, the best coffees in the world year after year after year. What an amazing experience that must be to kind of get to have that. Are there any that kind of like stand out to you that like have really like over all these years, you're like, that one still just blows me away?
Yeah, there've been so many great experiences and for lots of different reasons. You know, some of them are literally what's in the cup and it just kind of really shines. But, you know, there's some incredible professionals that are on stage that are just putting everything they have into this performance. And, I mean, it's just so humbling to be able to be there and experience that. I mean, there's definitely been a bunch locally, funny kind of stories of more regional spaces where people are just trying crazy experimental things like serving a signature drink out of a hollowed out chili, which was terrifying and exciting at the same time, through to, judging at the World Championships. And I mean, I was lucky enough to be on the finalist sensory panel for the 2011 World Barista Championships when Raul Rodas won the competition from Guatemala. He was the second producing country winner after Alejandro Mendez the previous year won, which was quite a big break from all the consuming countries kind of winning the championships. And his performance was so detailed and so in depth, but like so engaging for the full like 15-minute stretch. And he served out a signature drink that made use of every different part of the same coffee that he was serving. So it was made up of like some cascara, that's the dried coffee pulp on the outside of the cherry.
Which often people make like a tea out of.
Exactly.
Kind of
so he made like a little tea piece. He used the mucilage and the seed in the mucilage, which is like that next layer in of the coffee seed, little sticky.
It's like a honey processed almost kind of style.
That would be where a honey process, but it was unroasted in mucilage, and he did like a little extraction of that.
How do you extract that?
Like a tea again, like a steeping. And then he had roasted the coffee just to yellowing, so not fully developed in the roasting process, and then also had fully roasted it. And all of these parts came together in one signature drink that was signifying different elements of his coffee, all from the same farm in Guatemala. And it was just an incredibly detailed and such a great, you know, single origin.
It's so funny because single origin is always just like about purity, and it's like, it's this one cup, here's a filter coffee, the single origin. But this is like single origin with 500 facets of like flavors and stories. So what an interesting way to look at single origin and like explore it. That's so cool.
And it's just really digging deep into kind of what a particular coffee story is about as well. You know, historically hadn't been talked about all these different kind of parts of the process. So yeah, it was great to unpack that and experience that.
I wonder, it's always interesting looking at that like divide between that World Barista Championship and then like the everyday person and like, where's your experience with it? Like, are you just like living out for that crazy, amazing coffee, that one-off thing, or are you just more about like that making your coffee at home and just enjoying that ritual? Like,
well, I think with the competitions in particular, I mean, you're right, they're a particular niche, right? A very narrow niche of the coffee world. But I've been involved with them at both a real grassroots startup kind of level and at that really high-end pinnacle. And they can have such a great impact on people's careers, not just from winning, but just from learning. Like I said, my own experience was I just built so much knowledge and understanding by having a framework to follow, but also the community development around them. It's like even at the world competitions, some of the most heartwarming scenes are behind the scenes with the competitors from all around the world are just like lifting each other up. It's like, yeah, they're competing against each other, but really they're all there for the same reason.
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I've been like backstage at a few of these comps and that kind of thing. I was actually surprised with there is that level of like competition in some of them. Some people are like very cutthroat and wanting to do that. But even a lot of the ones that are very like, I'm in on what I want to do, it doesn't mean they want the failure of someone else. Like, even though they're killing for their success, they don't want it at the expense of someone else. They're over there giving advice to the other, like tasting their coffees, like, oh, maybe in your speech, try this, like giving each other advice, like trying to help each other grow. And you can see that there's a huge level of camaraderie there. So not to say that there isn't, you know, there's always going to be different characters. But I was actually quite shocked by the level of friendship behind the curtains.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the ripple effect of the community building that's around it is greater than kind of the final outcome of one champion.
Yeah. We talked about it before. I do find that I feel like the World Barista Championship, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like the level is so high. And every year to win, you have to be better than the year before, I feel like, or like you have to like take it to the next level. You have to do something like different. And it feels a little like inaccessible now for someone that is maybe at an earlier stage in their career. Or what would you recommend for someone that maybe was thinking about one day I want to do that? What are the first steps that you kind of take to get to that part? Because so many people have so much money and coaches and how do you get to that stage?
You know, the first thing I would say is don't approach it with the view of winning it, right? There's one winner and it would be great to do that and maybe that's the ultimate goal, but there's so much more to get out of being involved in it than just that. And I think that you're right that at the very top end, all stops are pulled out and it gets really kind of excessive and kind of very detailed. But I think you can really, if you want to get into it, I would highly encourage it for anyone. I think that it's a great experience. And some countries around the world are trying to make that accessibility a lot more of a focus. And even here in Australia, they're trying to make that a little bit more accessible with their community championships, where you don't have to bring a huge swathe of equipment.
Yeah.
And so I'd say you can get started preparing at the very base level, just start talking about your coffee and what you're doing and what the customer is going to experience with them. Because that's like the core of it, is talking and making.
Well, we might our big experiment is turn Liam into the World AeroPress champion.
Here he comes.
And I feel like that's a lot more approachable competition that's like a bit more fun and lighthearted can do that. Because imagine being a kid and being like, maybe I want to be the World Barista Champion. And in your head, if you didn't know, you'd be like, that just means I make the best coffee.
Yep.
Let's sit down and watch some past competitors. Turn on Jack Simpson. He's like, I was speaking to people in the shipping industry and they had this technology of using waves that would run through the water. And I found that when I dunk my coffee in this wave machine that I've created, that it bonds different elements together. And you're like, okay, maybe I won't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, maybe I don't want to do that.
The question with the very novice question, but I thought the AeroPress Championship was a little different, right? Or is there an element where
no, you've got the wave machine, right? You've got
to have a wave
machine. Yeah,
Great.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. But like, there's a whole chat that you do about, do you just read the recipe, or is there a whole thing like, do I take people on a journey?
The AeroPress Championships was almost a response to the over-formalization and seriousness of the barista competition.
I can sing a song.
It's like a lot more relaxed, and it's a great way of like turning up. You don't have to have this huge swathe of kit. So I think that's a great way to go.
Does AeroPress work in the way that you don't know on the day they'll just give every competitor the same coffee and you have to then brew it in your way, which is why, if that's, maybe I'm wrong in that case, but I think Jamie was saying a great way is to maybe do a range of different coffees and trial the different methods, so that the best thing that you could be armed with is they go, boom, here's a wild fermented whatever. You're like, I know a brew method that's going to work really well with that. Or, hey, here's a washed light roast. And you're like, okay, I know how to bring out the cleanness, of that.
And I mean, look, that's a perfect example of like what you get out of this and the skills at the end. Maybe you don't score well. I don't know. Maybe you'll be the next champion. Who knows? But the preparation for it means, you've just built up that, okay, anytime I get a natural coffee, what's the way I want to start my recipe? Is there some learning there versus a washed coffee? And suddenly, professionally, you're going out into the field and can tackle any coffee and have like a better starting point. Yeah. And otherwise, you might not create that structured training or like learning process.
Yeah. Well, now that we've got you on board, maybe you can help us with this, campaign we have going for Liam. Maybe we could set up because we were kind of like, and I still like this, initially because Liam hadn't done too much AeroPress, we were like, let's do every past winner's recipe.
Yep.
Just to sample it, just to see the different things that kind of happen. Is it more textural? Is it more clarity? Like what is it? But maybe you could help us create like a formula of like, this is the best way to train your palate and like learn the different methods. Because there's so many questions with the AeroPress with like, you know, do you let some water bypass? Do you do the vacuum the whole time and just do immersion? Like what temperature, what agitation, et cetera, et cetera. So breaking down why we do all those things and what effect it has could be like a cool way to figure it out for Liam.
For sure.
My God, what a list of bloody things there. That kind of, I mean, there's so many more, but that kind of like touches on the top notes of basically I just wanted to ask all that so I could be like, look at this big dog we got on the show. Look at this big dog. Isn't that like the ultimate like, you know, just terrible way of just greeting someone? You know, it's just like the big dog and just like
some good energy. It's all right. I'll take it. I'll take it in the spirit it was intended.
Yeah, it was all love. It was all love. Now, you know, I've focused a lot on home brewing and that kind of stuff, different methods. We talked last week about new coffee gear that was kind of happening, trends in the coffee world. What are the things at the moment that are kind of exciting you for the future of coffee? Or what do you see that's like emerging that you're really liking?
Yeah, good question. I mean, because of the space that I've been doing some work in recently, I've been lucky enough to taste coffees from some unusual or kind of emerging regions around the world. So we all kind of think of like, where's the best coffee coming from? And Colombia and Panama and Ethiopia. But there's actually some different countries who are really either progressing their specialty coffee offering or kind of creating a coffee offering from scratch. So I was lucky enough to be teaching a Q-grader course in the north of Thailand recently and got to taste a whole range of coffees from up there. And they're doing some incredible stuff, especially from a control of fermentation and processing. Incredible stuff. But they drink it all. So you hardly ever get to taste it. And actually all throughout Southeast Asia, there's some really interesting developments happening in like Laos and the Philippines. There's like little tickles in Malaysia as well. So all of these are like emerging regions and maybe even in some other countries kind of out of East Africa, Central Africa, where there's coffees coming out and we just, even saying out of China, obviously not in East Africa, but moving back over to this side of the world.
This guy knows his geography.
Yeah, there you go. I know the difference there. But these are coffees that we might not be as familiar with, right? And it's just cool to be able to go like, I don't know what to expect here. Got to be open, got to discover things.
And do you think we'll get more of those like Thai coffees or do you think that it's like they're just knocking them all off so it's like, or is it growing so much that there will be more of like a global demand for that?
Yeah, well, I guess this is the silver lining of the problem of impending big gap in production to supply, right? Is that there's this predicted huge shortfall of coffee in the world for where consumption is going. But the silver lining of that is that it creates a really nice environment for countries and producers and people to kind of say, okay, there's business here, there's demand that I could kind of invest in. So I think we'll start seeing more and more of it. But at the same time, the internal consumption rates in some of these countries are great, and so we're Thai coffees. Maybe you don't see so much of it out there, but it is certainly interesting when you can come across it.
There's something nice about that as well. Where they're kind of like, we're growing it, we're drinking it. Yeah. Get off our coffee. This is great.
Delicious.
Yeah, I love this.
Also, just leaning into like localizing your production.
Yeah,
and like it becoming a thing. I think like just generally the connection of like just on the internet, everything is kind of diluting a little bit like culturally and like things are skewing. To have something so localized and so specialized and it's like, I'll go to that place to experience that thing. It's kind of lovely.
Yeah. And like the ownership and kind of closed loop there or the loop kind of feedback loop there is just so tight. You've got literally baristas just rocking up to the farm and working with the producer on their fermentation and then taking it back to their cafe and brewing it and the producer coming down. And, we grow a little bit of coffee here in Australia. So, we've got to do a little bit of homegrown support, like load food miles and people trying to do some different stuff. So we've got an opportunity locally too.
I know whenever you talk about Australian coffee, the general consumer like, huh? What are you talking about? You're like, we got some coffee here. We got some coffee.
Yeah.
Now look, at the end of the day, it's just coffee. So let's talk a little bit more about Ben, outside of coffee. What gets you going?
Outside of coffee? Wait,
Yeah,
what?
outside. What's that? What's that over there? We've talked, you love cooking for your friends. You love a natural wine. You love traveling the world.
Sounds like I need some long walks along the beach or something as well.
Maybe you and I could go horseback riding. No saddles on the beach.
Sipping
Maybe
an
one horse.
espresso backwards.
Maybe we could install Lamazocco on the back of the horse.
I like it.
Horse-drawn
I thought you said the
espresso
budget
bar.
was kind of limited.
Hey, I can get a horse.
Okay.
I got some pull. I reckon I could just go on the channel. Does anyone in Melbourne have a horse? We need it for a day. And I reckon I could sort us out with
We're
that
going to
one.
install.
I just can't move a coffee farm from Queensland down
On horseback. On horseback.
No, but I mean, it kind of makes sense. You're into coffee, you're into natural wines. Now, specifically natural wines or just wines in general?
Look, I like wines in general, wine, food, kind of flavor things, right? It's like,
Right.
I mean, I think it all sits in the same space of like a creative element of making something, a sensory experience, and then the people around it. That's so interesting.
But I just want to ask, is it, like I know obviously wines, but is there a fascination in natural wines?
Look, there is. And
Right,
I know.
there you go. Because we had, I believe, who was it? We did have a hot take on this show that was just like, why do all these, was it Common Folk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was like, why do all these like coffee people it's like, oh, I can only drink washed. I want the cleanest of coffee, but then I want my wine to taste like a sock.
The socks can be delicious. No.
You know, I mean, sometimes, you get that funk. You get a little bit of sock.
When you need
sweaty
a sock in your glass.
Yeah.
No, I do have to laugh at myself, the natural wine kind of trend, and it's all very archetype that I'm sitting in here, bearded barista in Melbourne drinking natural wines. But I think the interesting thing for natural wines for me was kind of the accessibility to them that, before maybe they became so popularized, there was a real like lo-fi energy to them. It wasn't like you go into a restaurant and like, oh, if you don't know the name of the chateau on the hill, then don't even bother ordering this, right? It was like, no, we're just trying this thing. It's like, we don't know. We're young. We're kind of energetic. We're trying something different. We're doing things that are a bit counterintuitive, and a conversation about like a reduction in the processing of it, right? A reduced kind of intervention of it. And there's lots of funny correlations and crossovers with coffee as we try and get more and more consistent and controlled with coffee. The wine thing is like a bit less. But I think the flavors are super engaging for me as well. Like I definitely enjoy acidity and high acidity things, which I think why a lot of coffee folks tend to, like coffee industry people kind of sometimes lean towards it because it's a higher acid kind of profile. But yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's fun.
Can I ask, okay, we're on a date. Maybe we've gotten there on the back of a horse with a Lamazocco on the back.
Oh, hello.
Punch just double spreezy. We're sitting down on the beach. What are we cooking? What are we sipping on? Can you pair me one glass of wine and a little experience?
And what, we're on the beach? We're on the beach?
Sure. Yeah.
But you're on a beach with whatever cooking apparatus that you want and, anything like that.
I mean, look,
There's
you
no
just
limitations.
avoid the cooking, right? And just go down with some great cheese, some fresh mozz, a little bit of basil, the tomatoes. It's going to be a good time here. It's going to be a good time. And, if you're on the beach, I'm all about the bubbles. Get some little sparkle action happening. So, I'm liking, there's some different little pet nats out there, the little sparkling petulant naturals, which are the lo-fi natural version of of champagnes and sparklings. And I think it's just super fun, refreshing. Anything with bubbles, got a lot of enjoyment.
He's a bubbly kind of guy. He likes a tingly drink.
That's it.
Hell yeah.
But I will say, not all natural wines are great, by all means.
Well, I was going to say, maybe we're learning something about ourselves as co-hosts here because you were just like, I love the low fineness, like people just throwing it against the wall and seeing what was happening. I kind of, to begin with, a lot of what I didn't like about natural wine was that natural wine had no real definition where anyone could really do what they want. It could mean zero intervention. It could mean some intervention. It could mean this. It could mean that. And it was like there was so many that you were just like Mousy Taint, like Hay Bailey, like whatever. And it was just like this moment of, for a while, there was too much bad stuff that I wasn't getting the excitement of the good stuff. Whereas I feel like now it's refined itself and there's so much more for me, elegance coming through in some of these like natural or more just skin contact or whatever it is kind of wines and like the class in how it's being done. I'll have to get you a few bottles from my brother-in-law owns Coriol Wineries in McLaren Vale. But they also they have like another line called Dune, D-U-N-E.
I've had some Dune.
Yeah. And their stuff that's like, I love hearing about like the winemaking process where he's like, great, like taking a Fiano or whatever, or maybe this was Coriol or whatever, but it's like one of them I'm going to do complete. 1/4 is going to be the same grape but completely like cold pressed out. One's going to be left on the skin and one is going to be done this. So I'm going to add texture here. I'm going to add acidity here and I'm going to add that. And you're like, cool, that's the winemaking skills that I want to know that are going into this glass.
Yeah.
Also, their wines are so like, not a sales pitch here, but I'm constantly like, mate, you could be selling this bottle of wine for $60. And he's like, yeah, I could sell a small amount of it for $60 a bottle, or I could sell a lot of it for $28 a bottle. And I'm just like, at that price range, you know, getting something of quality when you're in that $25 to $28 range, you're like, oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
Oh, definitely.
I'm seeing a little pattern, like, you know, amending recipes and things. I think I'm going to, maybe you can guide me through this, but would you ever do like an AeroPress where you do almost 2 mini recipes and then blend the 2, give that experience?
Oh, I see.
What I did.
Yeah, you could definitely kind of pursue that.
I'm very excited for that coaching. Hopefully it translates.
We'll get there. Yeah. I think, you know, just to dive very quickly into this topic, because I think, you know, one of the interesting things is the correlation here, or at least maybe not correlation, but the similar conversations that happen in coffee and, you know, especially around this whole natural wine discussion, is there's a real tendency for both parties to kind of say, you know, there's been almost this cult of the hands off, I'm not involved, transparent kind of idea, which I think is a bit of a false kind of philosophy in that it kind of tries to make out like we're not involved, we're not touching it at all. And the reality is that, you know, whatever path we take in coffee or in wine, the decisions we make or the decisions we don't make are all affecting what the final outcome is.
They're all a decision.
They're all a decision. Whether you make a decision or not, it's a decision. And I think that, you know, the natural wine thing it's not about having it completely wild and uncontrolled. It's more just about making intentional decisions in a different way. And the same with coffee. It's like, you know, from a roasting perspective in particular, an espresso, it's like your choices in roasting, no matter what they are going to translate, transform, change what you started with as a raw product into something else. And I think it's great to have that mess and experimentation and looseness. I think you need to take ownership over it.
And as you said, it's the decisions that you make, and we have to do these different things to learn what works, what doesn't, and where we can apply it. I mean, I think you bought in a coffee last week when you were here. And what were you saying that like the process was for that? Because like you can't just go anymore like it's a natural or whatever. You're like, here's the full line of what happened to it. And do you remember what it was?
Yeah. I mean, it was like this highly extended kind of very precise fermentation process that's doing anaerobic kind of fermentation of the whole cherries in a sealed tank, controlling the temperature over a certain amount of time. And then it's coming out and drying kind of extended on natural tables.
Yeah.
And I think…
Did they remove the fruit after…
Yeah, like some of them they're doing like pulping and then kind of a honey but extended natural.
Yeah.
It's like all of these different combinations. And I think it goes back to what you were saying about the title. You know, you had a problem with natural wines, but there's like so many different expressions of that from people who have been doing it historically for thousands of years in Georgia, you know, to crazy young kind of winemakers in Australia. And the same with like natural coffee is like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
You know, is it processed for a certain amount of time? Is it anaerobic? Is it kind of very hot, humid conditions? So I think a lot of this is us understanding a bit more detail about the journey that these things have taken so that we can know what we enjoy and we can select what we enjoy and we can explain those things to the next people that we're serving it out to, whether it be a glass of wine or a great cup of coffee.
Well, what a great way to round it up, because it feels like that's what we're going to be doing on this pod. We're going to be exploring all of that, sharing it with you, we want to build a good community here where we can have that open conversation and kind of build on ideas with one another. Ben, I got to say, so excited to start this journey with you. Put it there, partner.
Yeah, very excited. Oh well, hello.
I got caught awkwardly between the mics trying to hold hands. Then I just felt like I needed to kiss his hand. And I don't know.
It just escalated really quickly.
We were talking about horseback riding and it all elevated really quickly and I'm a little nervous now. So it's all happening.
Quick, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap that one up. Woo! All right, thank you for joining us. We're going to be doing it. We're going to do a coffee break right after this and dive into it a bit further. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're all super excited. I know we are to have Ben here. If you want to reach out and just let us know how much you love Ben, hit us at that email at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. You can hit us on all of the socials. We really do want to hear from you. Now with a new co-host joining us, hear what you kind of want to get back. If there's any guests that you'd love to get on, we've done a full brand strategy day here today where we're building out what this pod is going to be. So once again, Ben, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Listeners, thank you for joining us. And as always, it's just coffee.
Oh yeah.